own space, justice is a long way away.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie Podcast. I, as always, am your co-host, Brian. And joining me, as always, is your co-host, Spaz.
You know what? I paid for this podcast. I want it my way, damn it. Yeah, I had to go there.
Okay. Your co-host, Julie.
Hey, how you doing?
Your co-host, Thorsten.
Hi, I'm still recovering from today's morning stream.
If you're listening to this after today, we played an early access game called the Emu War, which might have been one of the jankiest things I've ever streamed. And your co-host, Jacob.
Line must be drawn here. This far. No.
Welcome back, Jacob. Glad to have you back. So friends.
Been a while, yes.
Yeah, friends, this might be one of our most negative shows ever. So I wanted to start it with a bit of positivity. We're going to be talking about gamers today, and we are gamers. But there is also gamers that we just want to say at this top of the show. I'm not very eloquent. Please forgive me. That there are a lot of gamers we love. Gamers that do mods. Gamers that help with video game preservation. Gamers that help dive into code and find news about what's coming up for a game. You know, there are a lot of great gamers out there. Those are not the gamers we're talking about today. Excuse my language. We are going to talk about the whiny, entitled fucks that fill up every Steam forum, every Discord, every Facebook page. You've all seen them. You know what we're talking about. But we're going to talk about a few subsets today because we feel
there's always at least one.
Yeah, and we feel we need to vent.
A very vocal minority.
Yeah, a very vocal minority. Basically like Gamergate people. Basically like that. They're just the worst, you know?
For the people that haven't excised that little piece of history from their memory.
They're lucky.
Or the people who say, for example, have reaction channels where they need to feed people's anger.
Is that a thing?
Oh, it's very much a thing. Yeah, they try to raise controversies that don't exist, make claims about things that don't exist, and then try to get people angry about it because games are becoming more diverse or they're becoming more accessible for people who are disabled. Yeah, those kind of people are also one of the ones we'll be discussing.
Ugh. I didn't know that was a thing. I'm kind of sad that I know that now. Like, you know, I feel like my life has gotten a little bit worse now that I know that's a thing. Oh, good. And thanks to Cot. Yeah, thanks. That's great to Cot. Thanks. Anyway.
Classic.
That. So, where would you guys like to start? Do you guys have anything on your mind about this that you want to start with? Because there's no structure to any of this. I don't have time to make a structure. So, wait. So Fernando is hitting us right off the bat with after publishing a video of the game you're working on Reddit, someone sent you a direct message with a long list of requirements? Quote, or your game will suck.
All my game was. Fernando, do us a favor and send us a screenshot of that.
I would
afterwards.
Love. Yeah, you could hide the name of the Reddit user if you want. That's fine. But I would love to see what those quote unquote requirements are. I would love.
Yes, just.
I am dying to see what those quote unquote requirements are.
I would like to mention, like, the complaints that people make from a distance are always infinitely amusing. Immensely amusing.
Oh my god. Oh, multiplayer, hottest, VR. Yeah, things that would take. Oh, so okay.
A lot of time to implement.
A lot of time to implement, a lot of effort, and then you'd probably have to raise the price to cover all that time and effort. And they'd be like, but it's so expensive. It's so expensive. How I can't.
While buying the next Battlefield game for $60 United States dollars. If they didn't do that, if these were two groups were different people, they may have had a point. But they are almost invariably the people who like fanboy over like Dark Souls games. Dark Souls games aren't bad, but I would argue they're overpriced. But like Battlefield games, or buy another Call of Duty for $60 United States dollar dues. You get the idea.
Yeah, so why don't we start with that? Why don't we start with unreasonable demands put on developers? We've all seen this. We like the game that I had. We're going to talk about Rebel Galaxy Outlaw probably a lot today, so that's what we have in the video in the background. I saw so many people ask Travis for VR support for
RGO
for Rebel Galaxy Outlaw or Free Look, and well, they kept saying no over and over and over.
Well, that's actually one of the more tame ideas. People have thrown out there.
Yeah, tame. That is one of the more tame. I mean, it's a first-person cockpit view.
Austin.
Oh no!
Yeah, we just
we'll
get him back.
We'll get him back. So yeah, so many people I remember like, can we get VR support? And Travis would honestly say like, VR makes me sick. So no.
Also, it's a lot of effort.
It's a ton of effort.
Well, no, I mean, it literally makes him sick.
Yeah.
And I remember telling people on the Rebel Galaxy Outlaw Discord, it makes him sick. He's not going to do it. And they said, well, why don't they just hire another engineer? What? That's your retort? Hire another engineer. He's the sole engineer on the game.
And then they complain that he took money from Epic to put the game on Epic.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay. I would argue it's a word that I feel like I will use one more time. I would argue that's victim blaming, if anything. Let's talk about Rebel Galaxy Outlaw and Epic for a moment. This is the backstory for those who don't know. Rebel Galaxy Outlaw was one of the first games that signed on with an Epic deal, and that was before the Epic Game Store was actually even publicly announced. So, as being one of the first games to actually show up on the Epic Game Store, one of the first ones to actually have a deal, they took a lot of the brunt of people's ire, whether justified or not, over the state the Epic Game Store launched in. But you can't really blame them for taking a deal when the store wasn't even announced yet and have no idea how that would launch and how it would turn out. You can't exactly fault them for that because, well, they're not one of the dev teams that joined with an exclusive deal after it launched. They preceded the deal even being announced. And even more so, I should point out, toxicity towards devs doesn't really make sense. It doesn't help. It's not going to motivate them to get things done because you're toxic to them.
Oh, they don't care about that.
Of course they don't. Of course they don't. That's part of the entitlement. But at the same time, unless the devs themselves are being toxic, I don't see any toxicity towards devs being, well, justified. Ever.
So you accept it only in retaliation, which, okay, admittedly a non-zero amount of developers do deserve.
Yeah, I mean, there are examples of ones that have absolutely deserved it. Digital Homicide, for example, who are no longer on Steam because they were very, very toxic toward, everybody. Plus, the whole stolen assets thing, and
and suing people. That can be a whole podcast, and also we don't care about them. They're consigned to the pages of history. Let them stay there.
Indeed,
relegated to the past tense.
But what happened with Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is ultimately a tragedy. It basically drove Travis, the main guy out of the industry entirely.
Pleasant.
And he just does voiceover work now. Oh, he just also released his first book.
And and he's a writer now.
Yeah,
as well.
So he's taken that creative energy elsewhere. But the sad thing is, we could have had so much more Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. We could have had a mod kit. We could have had expansions. You know, there's so much more that you can get 100 hours out of that game easily, sure, but there's just so much more they could have added new ships, added new sectors. They could have done so much more, and it will never happen. Yeah.
Now I'll add too that there were people who sent death threats. There were people who I mean, it's a sort of thing where people were okay. I'll get into this now because, well, it came up a lot and you may not have seen it, but there are people who are upset that you were playing as Juno because they didn't want to play as a woman.
Gamers.
Yeah. And it gets worse because it gets worse.
Wait, you play as a woman? What?
They were upset that Juno was the protagonist. They were upset that because she wasn't a large-breasted protagonist, she wasn't beautiful to them, and therefore she was not a good protagonist.
One, personal preference. Two, personal preference.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I saw threads of people upset because they were forced, quote unquote, forced to play as a woman. They couldn't play as average white guy for whatever reason, because misogyny.
Yeah, shaven white gruff military man with a gun. Yes, that is what all gamers want to see in front of them. Which, look, I have like 3 super injunctions I could put in here. All of them are insulting, so I'll pass.
Yeah, there's a lot one can say about that, but it drives into the larger point of channels that get very, very upset and need to base their entire content around getting people upset about things that are non-issues, the main character being female or being someone of color.
That sounds exhausting. Being angry takes up so much energy.
Well,
I remember back then when the first Tomb Raider was published. There was no issue about that you have to play a female character. No, there were no complaints. Same for Metroid, by the way.
Well, yeah, but when Metroid first came out, most people didn't realize that Samus was female. At least unless they beat it with the.
Yeah, right. You had to play it to the end.
Yeah.
Like under a certain time limit or something. Well, still, it works.
Yeah, I just
no one has complained about Samus since.
Oh, there have been complaints about various suits that she's worn over the years.
Okay, her outfits are a different thing, but her existence as a woman in a video game is not the issue.
Right.
So wait, David brings up an interesting point. Back in Metal Gear Solid 2, you did not play. You barely played Snake. Who did you play?
That's different. Yeah, there's a character named Raiden who you switch into, and you
after the prologue, yes, who is the person you play as for most of the game, and he's a long-haired pretty boy. That's I don't know why people hate him so much. Besides the fact that he wasn't Solid Snake and everyone wanted to play as more Solid Snake because gruff military guy voiced by David Hayter.
Well, to be fair, the reason why they brought in the character of Raiden in the first place and did a bait and switch that you were going to be playing as Raiden for most of the game was actually to bring in more female gamers, was the idea. Because yeah, it was an idea that was going to attract them to the series because, well, hey, long-haired pretty boy was going to be the protagonist for most of the game.
What? And, well, It's a Japan thing. I'm not going to say it's a Japan thing because it might also be a not Japan thing. I'm not a woman. I can't judge.
Bit of both. It's a bit of both. They knew that they would get more fans who were not already interested in playing because the main character looked like, gruff military white guy. So they wanted to have something a little bit different, and they did. And to an extent, it worked.
I'm a bit speechless right now.
David, yeah, you're absolutely correct. They were aiming for a what is known, the term in Japanese is bishonen, which means effectively attractive or pretty boy.
Roughly, yes.
Roughly, yeah, attractive young man is the aesthetic they were going for, and it worked. As I said, it worked.
So, so the point we're driving towards here is A, this is not new, and B, it's still stupid.
Yes, and yes.
It hasn't. Like, when did MGS2 come out? 2001.
2001. Yeah.
21 years ago.
It was about to say the same.
The arguments haven't changed, and they haven't gotten any less stupid. I'm always amazed by how many, because a lot of these complaints boil down to the explanations for them are all about how the modern art is degenerative or whatever, and things are changing. You've been complaining about the same shit for 20 years at this point. Move on.
Well, the same people who complained about the lead character in Star Trek Deep Space Nine being a man of color are the same kind of people who are still complaining about this crap today in gaming. Because some people never change. They're just going to be perpetually in that racist mindset or misogynist mindset, as the case may be, or both. And because of that, anything that doesn't look like an insert character to them, as in a white guy, is trampling on their specialness. They have to gatekeep that.
Which, thank you for using that word, because I'm gonna reuse it later. But what I was gonna say is I had something to put in there. Yeah. But yeah, this is what it all boils down to. It's all complaints about, they post hoc justify it with things changing and making things political. Because back in their day, games were simple and so on, and didn't get political or whatever.
Oh no, they're woke now. Oh no.
Except even presuming your argument had merit, they have been political for 30 years now? 20 to 30 years on a good day? This isn't new. This isn't even recent. Longer. This isn't post 2016.
No.
Even longer.
Any art form is inherently political. Even if they claim we're not having a political stance, that in itself is a political stance.
Yes, but even skimming over that, even assuming they were right in in the idea that political is bad, political has been happening for 20 years, so it's not for 20 years at minimum in gaming, so it's not an argument that it's a new thing. The fact that also the idea that political is bad is a stupid argument is another argument.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a good example. In the 80s, there was a Top Gun game. I don't know if you know this. There was a Top Gun game based on the movie. Well, based on the movie using the license, but it had none of the characters from it.
What?
On the NES?
On the NES, yes.
Oh, yeah, I know that one. It had a garbage carrier landing section.
It was inherently political. The Russian pilots against whom you fought had names like Stalin for Timesky.
Oh, for God's sakes. What?
Yeah.
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 So
tell me that isn't political. Well, granted, end of the Cold War, but still very political, and 40 years ago, nearly.
Oh, God, that is almost 40 years ago. Oh, God. Oh, my God. So So
I want to come back to female characters.
Go for it.
For a moment. I just remembered another game. You may remember that too, and that was Hard Nova. You played a female character there too.
Oh, that's right. I forgot all about that because I never. Hard Nova, if you're not aware, is a sequel to a game that came out a couple years prior. Well, sort of sequel to a game that came out a couple years prior called Sentinel Worlds Future Magic 1. And you had a little more customization over your characters in that one. But yeah, you're right. In Hard Nova, you did play a female protagonist, if I recall correctly.
There's one on the cover, so...
Yeah, but it wasn't a big deal. Like, no big deal was made of it at all in the game.
No.
Good.
Yeah, no, exactly. The reason I didn't finish that game is because it's balls hard.
Yeah,
it's an NES RPG like the 1980s. It's gonna be invariably clunky as it's gonna be clunky as hell and extremely difficult. That's kind of how these things work.
Yeah, I don't know if it ever made it to consoles. I know it was on all the. I know it was on
DOS, Amiga, Atari ST.
Yeah, it was on like several computer platforms back then, but I don't think it made it.
But no consoles as far as I remember.
Yeah, David. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one.
So once again, people are complaining about new things happening despite them having happened for like 30 to 40 years at this point. Like I feel like we've kind of stretched out this particular line of argument here.
Well, yeah.
It still comes down to there are people who will always complain, and the salient point I bring from that is progress is going to happen without them, and they just have to be left behind. If they're not going to adapt, they just have to be left behind, and they can die mad about it.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
So go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna start it because I had like a whole thing pre-planned because related to entitled gamers are not just gamers who are entitled to who feel entitled to having a game played their way. They're entitled to having other people play the game their way. We call them gatekeepers in the industry, despite the fact that gatekeeping is quite a respectable job. And they have a long-standing history of stopping goals from happening. But unfortunately, their name was highly tarnished by a variety of twat waffles who all believe that their way is the best way to play a video game or enjoy a particular piece of art. And if you don't do it their way, you are not a true fan. Trademark copyrighted, trademark registered, all rights reserved. So, recently, this lovely game came out called Elden Ring. And it is really good. Elden Ring is really good.
It is very good. Yeah, I agree. It kicks my ass regularly, but in an enjoyable way.
But it is absolutely a good game. It is well designed, if a bit janky, but like by From Software standards, it is perfect. And as far as From Software games goes, it's really solid and really enjoyable. Now it is immensely difficult, and that's not inherently a bad thing. Even if the developers don't like necessarily add an easy mode, that's not inherently a bad thing. People complaining about the lack of an easy mode aren't necessarily wrong. But people complaining about lack of an easy mode is where things get a bit murky. Because a lot of people, for some reason, like tie their identity and their value to how much they can beat difficult video games and be better than everyone else. And they react and they lash out like in a reactionary almost manner to anyone suggesting that someone should make a game easier or more accessible because they are cheapening the art form and ruining the enjoyment and and the devs are giving into peer pressure and the lowest common denominator, which the first, like, even if you're right, that's victim blaming. You should blame the developers for doing that, not the people asking. And second, you are essentially telling other people that your way is the only proper way to enjoy an artwork. And if people want to enjoy an artwork in a way that they want to because otherwise they're unable to, then all they'll ask is to be given the option. The devs don't have to listen to them. They can, but the option is all they're asking for. They're not trying to ruin your fun because, I don't know, they're casuals or something. They're not malicious.
Well, we can't let those filthy casuals into our treehouse. That's our treehouse.
It is tribalism. It is pretty much just tribalism.
Yeah.
Except the tribe is being very good at video games. And it's all a bunch of, like, it's always like high effort, high difficulty games that attract these kinds of people. But like, especially because it can also get quite insane, even more popular ones. For example, the rivalry between Battlefield and Call of Duty players is it's died down because both games became garbage, but it used to be like football teams rivalry level of bad. Not like Italian football teams level of bad, but like German football teams rivalry level of bad. They're not quite shanking each other on the street. But
yeah, tribalism, but not necessarily violent tribalism.
But it gets especially harsh in like high difficulty games. Obviously, From Software are the big ones because like Dark Souls became the unifying cry, the rallying banner of gamers that basically put their identity first as people who play video games and are really good at them, because they're intentionally difficult games that require a lot of effort and are intentionally obtuse to serve as like a discovery thing. And that's not necessarily bad, but you're not like inherently a superior person for being better at them, and you do not get to lord over that over other people. And also, if other people want to enjoy those games despite the difficulty and want to enjoy those games, but don't want them to feel like a chore, like a confusing chore, you shouldn't just continuously insult and shit on them. Like, it's not just Dark Souls, there's other games. It's a lot of milsims do that. Escape from Tarkov is somewhat notorious for it, though surprisingly less so, mostly because in that game, everyone is suffering, so you're never really good at it, you're just suffering less. But a lot of simulation games, DCS has the same issues. I can list on and on, but I think everyone roughly understands what I'm talking about and what type of player I'm talking about.
Well, they're the type of player who, when people respond with criticism, fair criticism, that the game is not accessible to them. And I'm going to just separate here. There is a difference between being approachable and being accessible. Approachability can be things that are just quality of life improvements to a game that allow more people to be able to play it. Accessibility in this case refers to specifically things that make it more possible for people with disabilities to play the game. Things like colorblind options, or being able to rebind keys so that people can use a custom controller. Things that make a game more accessible are good. Things that make a game more approachable are also good, because that means more people will play a game. But doing so cuts into the gatekeeping argument of the gatekeepers. Well, you're making the game too easy. Well, just because difficulty modes are being added, that doesn't mean you have to play on the easiest difficulty. It just means that other people have an option to play that is not the one that you choose.
Oh, God, I just remembered.
Wait a moment.
Please. Okay, go on. Go ahead. Just be brief, please.
That's actually the reason why different levels of difficulty exist, in my opinion. That those people that aren't satisfied with the level of difficulty could go harder, and for those who's too hard could go easier. And I don't understand that argument. Some gamers bring up with that.
Because it comes down to one simple phrase, 2 words, get good.
Yes. It is the idea that getting good is like the enjoyment out of a game comes from its difficulty, but the problem is difficulty is subjective. So the same level of difficulty is not the best for everyone.
Yeah, and some people have chronic pain. So a game that you can't pause, and if you have chronic pain, and you have to stop because you have chronic pain and you can't continue playing, if you can't pause the game in order to deal with the pain, that makes things a little bit difficult for accessibility. It's not about whether or not you can pause a game. If you don't have any sort of issues like that, or you don't have a child you have to watch, or any number of other issues that could be considered difficulties or even disabilities, people complaining about not having a pause have a point. And people who complain about people complaining, well, if people want a pause option and you're a speedrunner and you're complaining about people wanting a pause option, you don't have to use the pause option. But people who need it absolutely need to use it because that's why they're asking for it.
Speedruns have categories since speedrunning was invented. Most speedruns have rules. You can just forbid pausing in the rule set, like a lot of games actually do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You know, something that I wanted to add in, but I didn't want to interrupt earlier. But I'm told I can interrupt, and
please do.
This is barely controlled chaos. So please interrupt.
I had. I won't go in with the long story on a personal basis that I'll save it to later maybe, but a couple of things I wanted to bring up, shorter things. First off is once I was discussing, and I don't even remember who it was, but it was a younger gamer, and I said, well, gee, in games like Call of Duty, the latest ones, I said it would be nice to be able to have a female character. And I was told, no, they can never do that because there have never been any women in combat. And I offered to introduce the young gentleman to a few. I wanted to point that out.
100,000, yes.
And also, I wanted to bring up someone that I know it's an older issue, and I don't think we should exclude it, though. And that was the whole Gamergate and Brianna Wu, who received death threats.
Yeah, that ties into toxicity, but please go ahead.
And also, the third little thing, like I said, I'll save my long story for later, but sometimes, and here's on the other side, sometimes developers are actually out of touch with their audience. And this goes back to 2018, I think it was, and this has to do with Diablo. And they decided that the best way Activision Blizzard, and thank goodness they got bought out, is they would bring Diablo to the masses is by putting it all on an app on their phone. And the uproar was just tremendous. And at one point, a young man stood up in the audience and said, "Is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?" And in that case, I think the gamers were actually entitled to be entitled, because I think the folks at Activision in this case had no idea what their audience really wanted out of a game. And part of it is good marketing is making your product meet the needs of the consumer. It's one thing to say, well, I don't think you should charge this because for this game because I want it to be cheaper, and the developer would have to say, I've already double mortgaged my house. But I think every now and then that it's a case of the developer not really understanding the market?
There are times, absolutely, where the developers are making a decision that is contrary to the way that their player base and the community that is fostered around that would like. And I'll give a very recent example. Team 17. They just not long ago tried to say, oh yeah, we're going to partner with this company and make NFTs for our games. Now, it wasn't going to be stuff for in the game. It was going to be a partnership for art that was going to be made by this other company. But the uproar was so bad that they reversed the decision to partner within, well, a day, pretty much.
But can I just add something that Julie has mentioned? Because a lot of sometimes the whole developers being out of touch actually can come from trying to pander to the sort of types that complain about weird nonsense like putting women in games. One of those because a lot of developers still use when it comes to, for example, male sims and first-person shooters, a lot of people make the argument that you can't put women in it because women can't shoot guns or something. Which to me is always immensely easy because this also includes a game I've mentioned already, Escape from Tarkov, where the developers pretty much explicitly went that we're not putting women in the game because women wouldn't handle themselves as private military contractors or something. Now, this is dumb for two reasons.
What?
One, was definitely funny because I was introduced to the game by a great friend of mine who is very much a woman and also very much a military veteran from the Dutch Army, currently active reserve, who does know how to handle a firearm, does know how to handle a plate carrier, and would probably outshoot 90% of Europe. But what's also worse is the fact that when it comes to acting like a trained PMC, one thing you people don't know is in Tarkov, the starting character you have is garbage. They can sprint for about 12 meters before they get exhausted. They cannot control their recoil like any sensible shooter would, and they do not speak they indicate nothing about professional private military contractors. In fact, I would argue they're about as good with a rifle as an actual schoolgirl would be.
So they basically put me in the game. That's what it sounds like.
Yes. Just imagine if someone gave you yes, you can very much play as yourself down to the fact you get exhausted after 10 yards. You don't even have to know how to shoot a rifle. Neither does your character.
Escape from asthma.
Escape from asthma.
Escape from a lack of exercise. Basically, escape from a lack of cardio.
Please,
give us a second.
Yeah, escape from a sedentary lifestyle. That's
that was a quality zinger. Spaz quality zinger.
Well done.
So yeah,
Jesus
all you end up doing if you pander to this sort of complainers is you make yourself look stupid.
Yeah. No, that is absolutely true. But and the weird thing about all this is games are supposed to be fun, and we all have fun in different ways. Like some of us have fun, beating the hard boss in Dark Souls, and the developer is clear about this is not a game meant to be played that's meant to be easy. That's fine then, there's nothing wrong with that. But it can't hurt to make an easier mode for people if that's what if they want to try your game. I will say this about Elden Ring. It is probably the most approachable From Software game I've ever played. Like, I think I've played 3 of their games. I played 2 of their games before Elden Ring. I played Demon Souls and then Dark Souls 2. And I lasted maybe 10 minutes in each before I was like, nope, I am done. But Elden Ring is actually, because of its open world, and you could just, if something's too hard, you run in the other direction. It's actually much
other stuff, yes.
Yeah, it's actually much more approachable, I find. I've actually got 4 or 5 hours in it now, which for me is a lot. And I'm loving it, honestly. Like, so there's a case to be made for making the developer sticking to their vision and making a game a certain way. I mean, would I play if there was an easy mode in Elden Ring? Would I play it? Yes.
You'd switch to that in a heartbeat, and nobody would bother with complaining about it. Because,
no.
Yeah, it's the argument of this is not the intended way to play the game falls apart when there's a difficulty mode setting, because each of those is an intended way to play the game.
Yeah, exactly. But if the developer didn't include that and they made it clear that that's how the way they wanted to play it, fine. You know, Steam has a 2-hour window.
There's 2 sides to that argument, and part of it goes back to, we had Paul Burnett in our on a show that I was on once, and the thing is, a lot of the gamers said, well, we want more instance combat, and they just ignored it and tried to push the people into the PvP battlegrounds, and in the long run, Mythic doesn't even exist anymore. And the other side of that, though, is I have run afoul of a lot of gamers who say, no, this is the way you have to enjoy the game. And a case in point, and Chris Dodson, who's new to I think listening here, and he's in the chat now, can vouch for the many times I've had to encounter this. And that was back in EVE Online. And I said, look, I just want to mine and enjoy the Zen experience. And yet along came the people with Hulkageddon, and they said, we are all going to get together and we are going to gank everybody who just wants to go out there and mine, and we are doing it for the good of the game. And I said on a podcast, I said, this saying you're doing this for the good of the game instead of doing it what it actually is for is like pick your chosen dictator invading Poland and saying you're doing it for the good of the Polish people. You're doing it because you want to be an SOB, and you just don't want somebody else to enjoy the game that like you want to enjoy the game. What if I'm not interested in PvP? That's why I'm on high-sex-based gaming.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Elden Ring a bit, I've told people that for the most part, Elden Ring has been a flower collection game for me. And that's all.
I can respect that.
No one has really complained. No one has been like, well, that's how you play it. No, that's how I play it. Right now, I'm running away from everything and collecting pretty flowers. That's how I'm playing it.
That's perfectly fair. I would argue there's more to the game than that, but if that's the part you're enjoying, then go ahead.
I'm enjoying that right
now. I do believe that as gamers, we are entitled to one thing in that game, and that is a competent photo mode.
Is there a photo mode in that game?
No, that's the issue.
Oh. It's a gorgeous game. There should be a photo mode. It's a gorgeous game.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. But alas, there isn't one. That's unrelated, yes.
Well, I think the reason why there's no photo mode is because you can't pause.
True.
Interesting. That's a good point. That would be funny if they implemented it anyway, and you're trying to take a photo. You died.
And someone smacks you across the face, yes.
They should do it anyway. Why not?
I would argue that's that is the From Software experience. That is how I would argue that that's exactly how they should implement it if they want to stick to the game's character.
I mean, they don't pause when you're in your inventory or anything. So why would they pause in photo mode? You know? So I was.
Yeah, I mean, granted, you can probably do screenshots within Steam. I mean, just using the normal Steam screenshot key, but that's about all you have.
Well, yes, but you can't adjust the camera angle and all the other cool stuff that's what a photo usually is.
Suicide photo.
Photo mode.
Suicide photo mode.
You die for each photo taken. Worth it.
Suicide selfie simulator.
So I wanted to steer the conversation in a slightly different direction. I wanted to see if everyone here had a specific type of entitled gamer complaint that gets them riled up more than others. Like, I know for me, it's when I see someone like go into a Steam forum for a clearly single player game. Are you going to add multiplayer? That kind of complaint grinds my gears so much because I don't think every game needs multiplayer, for example. So that is one of the types of complaints I see that just really get my hackles up. You know what I mean?
Now, I will concede most games are better with co-op, and we need more games that have co-op. Right. But it's not always the easiest thing to implement.
It's not easy to implement. If that's not the developer's vision, then that's fine.
You got to build around it from the very beginning.
You really do. Yeah.
If you want it to be good. And I'll give a great example because this is the one I was going to bring up anyway, is Genesis Alpha 1, which is a game that is single player. The team is 3 people. They designed it to be single player from the get-go. And when people complained, well, why don't you add multiplayer? Or I'm not going to buy this until you add multiplayer. They said it's just not in our vision. We didn't plan for it. This is a single player game. It's meant to be a single player experience. And I repeatedly said, in response to people like that multiplayer co-op might be good for a sequel. It might be good for a sequel if they wanted to make it, but it's not for this game. One of the key points is that when you go from your ship to a planet, you're on an expedition, time on your ship is frozen. And this is super important because alien infestations will grow on your ship over time. And if time is not frozen, you could come back to half a ship because everything's been destroyed.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Time is frozen on your ship when you're on an expedition. No new alien boarders will teleport over to your ship and start destroying things or killing your crew. So that time being frozen because you're not physically there is super important to the game balance. The game would be much harder if you could not be, if you weren't able to have time frozen on your ship while on an expedition, because you could be there for half an hour collecting stuff and farming for the biomass you need or DNA samples, that sort of thing, and come back to half a ship because time wasn't frozen. Terrible.
I've seen these comments too, and I've really got to say, are people crazy to want that? It's exactly it's exactly how Spaz said it. It is impossible to implement in the
game. Yeah. But if it were a case of you could have co-op, but you would have to have all the players on the ship go down to the expedition when the expedition starts. If that was required, then that could work. That could actually work. But the game was completely balanced around single player and not for co-op. And it would be bad to shoehorn it in. They're even working on a different project right now. So not even related to Genesis Alpha 1. They may go back to it at some point. I don't know. But every day almost people would be commenting about, we need multiplayer or I want co-op. Okay, great. You want it, but that's not going to happen.
And I just wanted to shoehorn in my other big, the other big complaint that gets my hackles up. is when people complain about something not being free. Like, why isn't this expansion free? Or why isn't this free? Or why isn't that free? Like, not taking into account how much time and effort something took to make. I think my favorite complaint is like when a game that was out like 20 years ago gets re-released on Steam, you know, and people are like, my CD key doesn't work for this. Can I get a Steam key? Why doesn't my CD key give me a free copy of this?
Because that wasn't promised?
If you have the game on CD,
you have the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, if you still have the CD, you have a copy of the game. You'd be buying a second copy. I mean, so
yeah, I mean, I've seen people who will put their games on, say, for example, HIO, and then when the game goes to Steam, when it goes live on Steam, then they can get a Steam key. Yeah. That's perfectly acceptable. That's perfectly reasonable. Yeah.
Exactly. But when like a game that came out in 2002 gets re-released on Steam, oh, why doesn't my CD key work? Because you're an idiot? Sorry.
Yeah, it's not something they promised that you were going to, that anyone who owned the game on CD was suddenly going to get.
Steam didn't even exist back then. You sons of... Anyway.
My favorite is the one that David H. in the chat just said. The one that not favorite, the one that irritates me the most, and that is the PvP get good argument. And briefly, the ultimate, I guess, story behind my experience with that is someone who was banned from a gamer group I was in that didn't just not one game. And so they said their goal was to make life miserable for the rest of us. So they had to have been thousands of real world dollars in EVE Online hiring people to war deck us for a real world year and following us from corporation to corporation. And before the last of us ever logged off, we were war decked by a group that called themselves Whores in Space. And that kind of tells you the level of the person behind it all.
So hang on. Real money was paid to players to harass you guys?
Yeah, right.
What? Like actual money changed hands?
Yeah, and EVE Online, what? I don't know if you still can, but at the time, you could buy like a little virtual token, sell it in game for a game time so you could have oodles and oodles of money so that you could then turn around and hire PvP corporations to war deck the people that just want to play the game their own way and have a good time. And the argument to that is, well, get good because, if you were better at playing the game and better at PvP, you wouldn't have to worry about that.
You know what? I'm trying to get good at mining. Could you let me get good at mining? That's what I'm trying to get good at. Sorry.
Yeah. My counter to the get good argument is I have a skill ceiling that is fairly low compared to most people.
So you're the opposite of Liam Neeson in Taken. You are.
Yeah, that's right. I have a particular set of skills, and I'm not good at any of them anymore.
I had a particular set of skills, and that was entirely just mining and pulling ore out of an asteroid. But to answer David H's question, no, Goon Squad was never involved.
Even though that sounds exactly like something they do.
Yeah.
Yes. So getting back to what I was saying, just real quick, is that to an extent, I can't get good like most people can. For a competitive PvP shooter, I don't play them. I don't because I can't compete, and my eyesight being legally blind limits that reaction time that other people just don't have to deal with because they don't have that disability to deal with. And for someone who would tell me, get good, well, that's about as good as I'm going to get. There are some games in which I will do a hell of a lot better than they ever will, say, for example, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. There are very few people on this planet who know that game as well as I do. And I've taken on challenges in that game that nobody else had by that point. But, and this is a big but, that doesn't mean that those skills apply everywhere else. And when it comes to Twitch shooting, Twitch reaction times, I can't handle that.
Yeah.
So getting good may not be an option for everyone, and that deals with our accessibility show that's coming up.
That's a good point. So who haven't we heard from about their quote unquote favorite complaint?
I mean, I can reiterate myself on people who tell other people how to play the video game. Like, not even like, I don't mean correctly as in giving advice. I mean, telling them what to do in a sort of, in a subjective manner. Like if there's a subjectively different way of playing something, then and these people go on about saying that it's the wrong way, then that's where I have issues. I don't mind people teaching others how to objectively be better or how to objectively play the game the quote-unquote correct way, because there are wrong ways to play video games. There are
absolutely suboptimal ways to play.
There is an entire YouTube channel of a gentleman who plays games wrong, and it's hilarious. Who's that guy, Spaz? You introduced me to him. Who's that guy that plays
Let's Game It Out.
Yeah, Let's Game It Out.
Let's Game It Out. Yeah. And the whole idea of that channel is to play games in a suboptimal way, usually in a creative mode if there is one, so that it saves on time. But yeah, the whole point is to play it differently than the developers might have intended for the sake of comedy. And it's very fun. Very, very good.
Oh, so fun.
But there is a difference between, say, the kind of backseat gaming I do with you, Brian, when you're playing a game I've played and I'm trying to help you through it, versus telling you this is the way you need to enjoy the game. And that's a big difference.
Correct.
So,
yep, that's one, Julie.
Thorsten, you hold my game.
So, Thorsten, I don't think we've heard from you about your quote-unquote favorite complaint.
Oh, well, mine is more or less more generic, and it's about, how do I put it? A developer intends something for a game, and people come up with things that really don't fit into this game. We had that before already, but I remember especially one, Space Engineers, which was, let's say, intended in a complete different way as it is now. And if I had known that it would be developed in this way, I wouldn't have bought it, to be honest.
I haven't played. Well, can you elaborate? I'm sorry. Can you elaborate? I haven't played Space Engineers in, oh God, half a decade, maybe. How has it evolved in a way that you don't like, out of curiosity?
Yeah, it started out as a space mining game where you construct ships for yourself, more or less, or engage in a certain kind of space combat, boarding especially, and or sabotaging enemy ships. And the first things that people wanted were planets. And I was there and thought, what? Planets? Planets don't fit in this game. And it got more and more planets and more building stuff. In the end, it's more or less a Minecraft in space.
Oh.
And that's not what I wanted to from it. And okay.
I say to want different things from a game than what the developers intend. That doesn't necessarily mean that the developers have to implement that, or that they're wrong for implementing the things the way they did. But it does mean that it might alienate part of the audience. I'll give creative differences a pass, just because, say, for example, that the developers only want a single player game and I want multiplayer or I want co-op. I'll give them a pass because if they want single player, that's the way they want the game to be designed. That's that. If it's an issue of accessibility, say they don't have a colorblind mode, or the game could have subtitles but they don't, then requesting that would make the game more approachable and accessible for people who would want to play it the way they intended, but can't because the game doesn't meet those requirements.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone gets upset when they add new language localizations or subtitles, or I don't think anyone's upset that Forza Horizon is adding actual sign language people in the game.
Yeah, ALS and BLS support, which is amazing.
That's astounding. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, because someone on our Discord was wondering about why they were adding it when subtitles exist, and I pointed out it's because subtitles alone don't necessarily convey tone and timing of whatever's being said. They can, but they don't always. And for some people who are deaf and rely on sign language, they can get tone and timing out of the way the person is signing it rather than reading it, because some things just don't come through in text. And it was a fair question because, well, if you haven't had to think about it, then you might not understand why that was being added. But it makes total sense.
No, I think it's a great addition, and it shows how companies that can afford to put more accessibility options in their game are actually doing so. Games. Like I go back to Ubisoft. Say what you want about Ubisoft. Their accessibility options are great. They're really great.
Yeah, Far Cry 6. Colorblind options. Subtitles for everything.
Yeah.
Everything. All spoken dialogue.
And sounds. And
the directional sound indicator to know not only that there is something there, or there was an explosion in that direction, it shows you how far away it was.
Yeah.
So if you cannot hear, you can see that there was something there.
So we're going to have a whole show about accessibility hopefully in a few weeks, because that's something we definitely want to talk about, and something that definitely needs to be talked about. But I've said my piece about my entitled gamers. What about you guys? Anything else you want to get off your chest?
All right.
One other thing. This goes back to 2007.
Sure.
And this is Richard Bartle. I don't know if anybody knows who he is or not, but he's one with Roy Trubshaw. He invented multi-user dungeons, one of the pioneers of the industry. Back in 2007, back when World of Warcraft had more players than Switzerland had people, Dr. Bartle said that if he could, he would take over World of Warcraft and get rid of it. And without bothering to find out why the man said what he did, there was an outpouring of just sheer raw hate aimed at Dr. Bartle, who's a game developer. And basically what it had to do with is, at the time, how high that game set the bar as far as profitability is concerned and expectations. So I guess he finally got his wish. Looks like it will be in the near future.
Wait, why do you say that? Is he working on something similar to?
Well, no, because the idea being that World of Warcraft at the time was pulling in so much money that developers of other games said, "Hey, why can't our game pull in this kind of money?" Well, because it's not World of Warcraft, and as Paul Burnett described it at the time, World of Warcraft was a freak of nature.
Yeah,
which is fair.
It's just totally fair.
Totally
fair.
Yeah, at the time it was a magic in the bottle situation, and so many other developers tried to copy that model and failed because, well, when something gets big, investors will want game developers to chase after the trend. When the people they're asking to chase after the trend may not have any idea about what made that trend work in the first place.
Blizzard was in the right place at the right time, and anybody who tried to recapture lightning in a bottle just failed.
Yeah, and even just leading up to World of Warcraft, there were so many things that other developers didn't have, like the history of the franchise and all that goodwill. Like there were so many things Blizzard had in their pocket at the time that no one else had. You know, God, yeah, I remember those days. But yeah, he's not. Your friend isn't wrong. It set an expectation that I don't know anyone else. Has anyone else met? Maybe Final Fantasy. Maybe.
Maybe.
Though
I will add, the success of WoW is what led to Bobby Kotick pushing for, if this isn't going to be $1 million selling game, we're not even going to bother making it.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh.
That is the other side effect of that, which is why, if you notice, in the years hence, there had to be a new Call of Duty game every year or every other year, or every year and a half kind of thing. There had to be another sports franchise game. There had to be another $1 million seller, and they weren't taking risks on smaller projects as much as they used to. Because Activision used to really, really take risks on so many smaller properties.
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots of stuff. Yeah, and then they went full on AAA. It's like, yawn. Boring.
Which is very sad in my opinion.
Oh,
because
so sad.
Because as you said, how many innovations Activision did over the years, especially in the early years.
God, I remember the excitement back in the day of the Atari 2600 of a new Activision game, because like they were all good and they were all different and they were all kind of special, you know. And now,
and you could be sure that they would be special.
Yeah, exactly. They had a reputation of, it's an Activision game. This is going to be good. This is going to be a good stuff.
Right.
And now Activision is known for lawsuits. And anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
They're not known for the best of reasons.
Yeah, they're not
and
known
they published
for
a lot of great things over the years. I mean,
yeah, sure.
They published a whole bunch of great Star Trek games.
Yeah,
they did.
They did well when they had the license. They did fairly well. They didn't have it for a long time, but they did well while they had it. So yeah, I mean, they've put out a lot of good stuff, and now it's just like, oh, okay. So we've gotten a lot off our chest today. I feel actually better for it. This was kind of cathartic for me, honestly, to talk to you guys about this. So thank you. I hope it was for you as well. Yeah, I mean, even with all the negativity, we had a lot of positivity as well. So I think we did good here. Is there anything else anyone wants to get off their chest before we go?
We were not just reductive.
Yeah, exactly.
which is what I feared it might go into, is that we would just be reductive about everything. But no. Doesn't happen.
It was a good balance. It was a good back and forth.
Quite the contrary.
Yeah, it was a good back and forth. So, friends, I guess that's going to do it for this particular episode. Are we agreed, the five of us, that next week we're going to talk about piracy and whatnot? Are we agreed on that? I think we are.
What sort?
Space piracy and boarding.
And boarding.
Space piracy and boarding specifically is
not video game piracy. Got it, because you had to specify that.
No, we will never talk about that publicly. We will talk about that in hushed back rooms, but we will never talk about that publicly.
Way above our pay grade.
We don't want to get in trouble.
Get paid?
So, friends, that's going to do it for this week. I want to we had a very active chat. So thank you very much, everyone in the chat. A great chat today, very active. And if you haven't joined our Discord, please do so, friends. We'd love to see you over there. Hang on, I think I have a button for that. No, I don't have a button for that. But anyway, I think it's discord.spacegamejunkie.com you can use to join our Discord. We can keep the conversation going over there. So it looks like next week we're going to talk about boarding and piracy, which is awesome. There are a good chunk of games that allow that sort of thing, and so it'll be fun to talk about that.
Right.
Huh?
That's right, Luke. You had a great comment.
Oh yes, and as I said, we'd end everybody. We'll end every show by saying, please get vaccinated. Please get vaccinated. And if anyone, I just want to say, if anyone is in Ukraine, Ukraine listening right now, please be safe. Please take care of yourself. And we're all rooting for you over here. We want you to do well. So please be safe. And with that, we'll see you back here tomorrow for, I think we're playing Tiny Space Academy. So that'll be, that's exactly what we're playing. So we'll see you back here tomorrow for Tiny Space Academy. Have a great day, everyone. Be safe, be well. And again, get freaking vaccinated. See you next time. Bye-bye.